What's going on, Chattanooga? It's your girl, Zainab K here with Brewer Media Group. And today we are going to continue our conversation with someone from the More in Common Alliance program. This is Mackenzie Wall. Today we're diving into another inspiring story, the partnership that is shaping the next generation of compassionate medical professionals right here in our community. Mackenzie, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm so excited to be here. Obviously, I am ready to talk about the More in Common Alliance, but it's something that is really near and dear to my heart, not just because it's something that's going on with my school, which I love, but I'm actually a Chattanooga native.
Yes. I've got that in my notes. I see that this is basically full circle for you. You're Chattanooga native, and you went on to Morehouse to, continue on your studies, but now you're here for your clinical rotations with More in Common Alliance. How does that feel?
Again, like you said, it's very much a full circle moment. And it's kind of a long story. So born and raised in Chattanooga, Tennessee. My mom immigrated when she was about 18 years old. She met my dad, who had lived here his whole life, and they just ended up staying. I started out at OLPH, right off the interstate for first grade, and then eventually transferred to the Chattanooga School for the Arts and Sciences, which is where I was there from first grade all the way up until 12th grade. And then kind of knew I really wanted to go to medical school, but wasn't quite ready to leave home yet. So I just hopped on across the street for my undergrad at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, where I was also a part of their honors college as a Brock Scholar.
Okay, look at you.
Well, thank you. And then the pandemic hit, so applications to medical school were a little bit challenging, but thankfully, I was able to hear about the Masters of Science in Medical Sciences program that they had at Morehouse, and I was in their inaugural one-year accelerated program, so I got my master's in 1 year there and was lucky enough to get accepted to their medical school, and that's how I ended up staying at Morehouse.
So then from there, you came back with the More in Common Alliance, correct?
Exactly. So I had just started my third-year rotations, and I was under the assumption, you kind of go all around Atlanta, maybe a little bit further like Columbus. But when I got an email on my pediatrics rotation, they had, some further places listed, Pensacola, and I saw Chattanooga was one of them. And I was like, heck yeah. I was going to be out here for 3 weeks. I got to stay at home and spend some time with my parents. But it just seemed like a miracle. I was like, of course I want to go back. I never thought when I was in high school or undergrad that it would even be a possibility for me to come start learning and practicing medicine before I was maybe a resident or a full-fledged attendant, because we don't have a medical school here.
Okay. So this is giving you the opportunity to get the experience that probably previously or maybe years ago was not an option here in the area. So look at you coming back. I know it must feel so comforting, because it's familiar, but also great in that same aspect because you're also continuing your education and becoming that medical professional that you always dreamed about.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like obviously this was the community that raised me. This is where all of my dreams, started. And so to come back, I'll say for one, it was very humbling because I thought I knew what the Chattanooga community was. I mean, I was born and raised here. Who's going to know it better than me? But the time I spent at the pediatrician's clinic, which was actually more underserved than the region that I grew up in, it was so humbling to be reminded that, when I'm in Atlanta, I see, the disparities. I get to see, maybe some of the poorest, most underserved communities, and then also Fulton County has some of the most affluent. So that's a huge gap. And I thought, well, that's just Atlanta. It's a big city. Coming back to Chattanooga, I didn't realize that we also had, a disparity that's very similar. So it was a reflection of my own privilege, but also to know that, no matter where you go, if you look hard enough, there's going to be people that need you and people who desperately need physicians that are culturally competent and compassionate when it comes to their healthcare, because it's such a personal issue.
Now, that part where you say physicians that are culturally competent, do you feel like being that you are from here, you had much more of a deeper connection to and duty as well to serve the area as well as the members who are needing this medical care.
100%. And actually, there was a funny story while I was at the pediatrician clinic. There was a woman who came in with her daughter, and I was doing the pre-intake, seeing what was the matter. It was just a regular checkup, whatever. Any updates for us, anything they wanted to talk about with the doctor. And, during our conversation, she was like, actually, you just look so familiar. I was like, well, I am from Chattanooga, but maybe I might just have one of those faces. She's like, no, you went to CSAS. And I was like, yes, I did. She's like, I was 2 years ahead of you. And it was so surprising because our interaction moving forward, she was like a completely different person. She felt a little bit more at ease just from what I could tell from like visually inspecting her. And I think that just goes to show that when you have people who can relate to you because of your background, even if it's just the city you came up from.
Right.
I don't know, maybe they just feel like you understand me a little bit more than I thought you would have.
Yes.
That trust that you can foster more quickly is something that I'm sure is very beneficial to overall healthcare, not just emotional well-being.
Yes. Definitely when you go and see a physician, you want to make sure that they do get where you're coming from. And if they don't, at least they care and have the passion to do what they're doing, to also be able to take care of you and others. Because it's one thing to go in there and you're like, oh, I'm not feeling well. And they're just like, oh, this is this. And I'm just treating you like a number. But to have someone who is deep-rooted and cares about that makes a big difference during your visit. Now, talking about the business of healing, that's very special, especially you're learning that. Double down on what the experience was like learning here in Chattanooga before you went down to Morehouse, and then also now coming back with the More in Common Alliance. What are the differences in all of those experiences that you've had?
That's a really great question. And I guess I have to start at CSAS. So it was a kindergarten through 12th grade magnet school. At the time, it was graduating classes were less than 100. So it was very small. But I loved being in that smaller community. I felt like I got to know my peers very well, and I got to know my teachers very well. And again, I just feel like having those closer relationships can really help you to thrive because you're not just a face in the crowd.
Yes.
Going to UTC, it was a similar experience. I had the blessing to be accepted into their honors college, and I got to do a lot of classes that were smaller sizes, had that intimate relationship with all of my teachers because they knew me. They knew my name, not just a name on a roster. They could put a face to it, and conversations we had in the classroom. And then going to Morehouse, it's also one of those smaller institutions compared to I have classmates who went on to bigger name schools, which are going to have like graduating classes of hundreds. I mean, of course, that's wonderful to have more doctors out there. But again, I just feel like I know my peers, which are going to be future doctors, a lot more better than if we were a big class. Same with our teachers at Morehouse. And then with the More in Common Alliance, I feel like it's making these smaller pockets, even more possible because now we are adding to the regional campuses. I was the only person here on my pediatrics rotation, which some people might think is so lonely, but I thought it was such a boon. I was there and I got to work with 2 physicians and their entire staff, and just every day was so exciting because one, there's a lot of material to cover in the pediatric specialty, but I got to see probably at least over 100 patients by the end of my 3 weeks. But the physicians were wonderful. They were always trying to get me to see like, oh, you haven't seen this kind of patient yet, come in with me. And I was bouncing around, and they were really trying to make sure that I had the most robust education possible. And I could imagine that might be a little bit more challenging if I was one of maybe 5 or one of 10 students at a clinic or at a hospital. So I really appreciated having that doctor to student ratio be smaller.
Yes, so it sounds like there was more of a hands-on approach, not necessarily throwing you to the wolves, but really walking you through what you are wanting to learn and what you're also supposed to learn. Because now you can ask those questions and not feel like, embarrassed or feel like, oh my gosh, there's no time for me. But you really get that sense of community and one-on-one learning.
100%.
With them. Oh, I hear that a lot about More in Common Lines. They're doing something great because that makes a big difference when you can just, hey, professor, I need help with this. Or, hey, Mackenzie, come along and learn this. That I love. I love for you. Now, it sounds like you've also gained your confidence and space to find your voice as a medical professional with this kind of learning. Can you share a moment where you really felt that growth?
That's a really good question because I feel like there's just so many moments that have really shaped my confidence as, a student in medicine. But shortly, I'm about to be, a resident, somebody with MD behind their name. And I don't know, maybe it's just being on clinical rotations in general is knowing that I might just be one or two students with the physician. And that knowing that they started where I was, one, gives me the confidence to speak up and ask questions because there's not going to be a dumb question when I'm honestly here trying to give it my best and trying to learn and take full advantage of the opportunity that I've been given. But also, I guess that just goes to show that's the environment that I came from at Morehouse. They encourage us to speak up. They encourage us to be leaders in our field. That's something that they definitely encourage and value, not just like, you're a part of these organizations on campus. You're going to get president or vice president of this little club. But those are opportunities that will continue to strengthen us once we are attending. Once we are leaders in our community. Like I look up to mentors like Dr. Panda, somebody who is an internal medicine physician, but she has done so much more than just treat patients, which I'm not trying to belittle in the slightest, but she's so active in the community and with mentoring other students. I think that's also what Morehouse School of Medicine tries to inspire in their students. And I think I have felt that across all of my clinical rotations.
Okay. Now, if you could speak directly to another medical student or someone who is just coming out of high school and they're interested in the medical field, what would you tell them in reference to your story about kind of being a big fish in a little pond, right? Those advantages, especially here in Chattanooga, or even just with the More in Common Alliance program?
Well, I'm actually going to start with the disadvantages I was faced with and lead into your question because I am a first-year first-generation college student, first-generation graduate student, and the first person in my family to be a physician. So, as you could imagine, I really didn't know what was going on. I felt very much at a loss since I didn't have a lot of people that I could go to. But thankfully, being in Chattanooga, a place that didn't have a medical school in our city, there was still a way for me to make it there. I was somebody who was definitely the product of my community because in high school, I was in the Future Docs Medical Explorations program, which gave us early access to shadowing. And then they had a similar program through the Chattanooga Medical Society, which was just regular Future Docs. So by then you were in college, got a lot more access to see different specialties firsthand, get to see and speak with physicians firsthand. And again, that early exposure is so important when you're considering a career that is a big time commitment, to be honest. And so those were really challenging, but thankfully Chattanooga was still able to find a way to get me there. And then being at Morehouse School of Medicine, they were very supportive during my master's. You want to go to medical school? We have the resources to help you to grow in the areas that you might be lacking. I didn't have money for Kaplan resources and stuff. They helped provide that through the program, able to get me, that MCAT score I needed to get accepted into medical schools. So starting as someone who's a little bit more disadvantaged, I'm very grateful to Chattanooga, but also to Morehouse. And then now being here, the advice that I would have to medical students, so I guess specifically in the Chattanooga area, is that don't be discouraged if there's a door that's closed. You have to keep looking around. Maybe there's a window. Maybe there's a door that's cracked.
Yes.
Don't be afraid to speak up and ask questions. You don't know what you don't know. And it's okay to say that. Like, hey, I don't know where to start. Can you kind of give me an idea? And you will hopefully encounter people who are willing to answer those questions for you. And if you're going into it for the right reasons, a couple bumps along the way are not going to dissuade you from your future.
Yes.
It's a long journey, and there are going to be obstacles. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all. But each one of those obstacles are going to help build the resilience that you're going to need to thrive in medicine.
And I love that you bring up those disadvantages in addition to the advantages, because ever so often, no matter what journey you're taking in life, people tend to not talk about that part. So then when certain people go through it, it's like, dang, this was never like in my radar. I thought it was going to be smooth sailing once I met this person, once I got this opportunity. And then it's like, okay, now this challenge, which is a regular part of the journey, now might seem like a roadblock to me because no one ever told me. And then God forbid you don't have anybody to talk to and guide you through that. It seems even harder.
Yeah, which is why I feel like transparency is crucial. It doesn't need to be a cool girls club that only people who know can get in. No, we need more physicians, period, and especially culturally competent ones. And that's something that I'm really passionate about when it's coming to mentoring and talking to people. Like, I'll tell you the hardships I have. I'll tell you the successes I have. But another thing I try to really stress is that no two people are going to have a journey in medicine that look the same.
Right.
And that is okay. Some people are able to go right into college after high school, get into medical school right after undergrad, and then go straight into residency and finish back to back to back to back.
Right.
But that's best case scenario. And maybe I shouldn't even say best, because life happens. People have children, they get married, they experience losses in their family. And being in medical school and seeing the diverse people around me, they had whole careers before deciding they wanted a career in medicine. Like, I have a classmate who was a geometry teacher for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Somebody who was a botanist. And then they just found their way into medicine because they felt like this was a bigger calling. But they didn't have that traditional, undergrad, med school, residency, etc. So just because your journey is going to look a little different doesn't mean that this is not a path that's not meant for you or that you're doing anything wrong.
Well, thank you for that advice right there, because it goes beyond medical. This could fit into anyone's heart. So I thank you for that. Now, touching on the More in Common Alliance program, how do you feel, or in your own words, do you feel like the program is shaping healthcare in this region, addressing the disparities, in our area? And why is it important for students to invest in their training locally, or even if they want to go abroad, just investing in their training period?
Well, I think about like myself, obviously being from Chattanooga, seeing that we did not have a medical school here. Having students come back and practice gives representation that there are options out there and people that you can talk to. There might be a lot of different people who are in Chattanooga who never thought that medical school was an option for them because they don't see the school. They don't see the representation here. They just see the hospital systems. They see the clinics, but they don't see the path. So having people at various points on their path is just a great resource. Also on the topic of just representation, period, I'm somebody who is half Filipino, and there is the stereotype that all Filipinos must be nurses. And so but imagine somebody who's, an elementary or middle school, if that's all they've ever seen, they might not take the leap to see, well, maybe I could be a Filipino doctor. Why couldn't that be a possibility? Just because I've never seen it doesn't mean it can't be done. But once you have that visual representation or that interaction in real life, you could see yourself in that role a lot more clearly when you see others ahead of you who have done the same. And I think that is a very powerful image.
Yes, I so agree. So when envisioning your journey, right, looking ahead to your medical career, what kind of physician do you hope to be?
Well, I am interested in general surgery, specifically hoping to be a breast surgeon. So I'll tack on a breast fellowship on top of my general surgery residency. But first and foremost, I just want to be a resource to my patients. I know it's so personal to come and let a stranger see the most vulnerable parts of you, the most intimate parts of you, and then go there and ask for help. And to not feel judged like everything you have done up until this meeting point is your fault, but to really have a collaboration in your healthcare, and that you have an ally. And I want to be that for my patients. I want them to feel seen and heard, even if they haven't felt that before coming to me. And even if, their care takes them somewhere else, or if they move, to let them know that this is the type of healthcare that they should have anywhere else. And if they're not getting that, then maybe it's not the physician for them. Because you're people first and foremost. And if you're not treated like that, and you're just treated like another person on the schedule, then there's something wrong with the system.
And thankfully, we have more people like you coming in with this right mindset.
Well, that's the goal, especially with the More in Common Alliance.
Yes, and it makes it, and that's why we have options for physicians. If one person doesn't work out, one facility doesn't work out, you have another. So thank you so much. I can hear the genuine passion when you talk about this in your voice, and that's more of what we need, especially here in our community and overall in the healthcare field. So I thank you so much. For even taking interest in pursuing this. And I pray that you become that physician that you want to be, okay?
Thank you.
So I thank you so much for sharing about your journey with More in Common Alliance. Thank you, Mackenzie Wall. Okay, we'll have her story up on our website, you guys, power94.com. And if the people want to just follow you on your journey, where can they find you at?
Well, I am on Instagram.
Okay.
If they do some sleuthing or even reach out to the school.
They'll find that. Okay, so we'll have that up there for you. But I wish you well on your journey. It's your girl, Zainab K, here with Brew Media Group. We'll get up with you later and continue this conversation with More in Common Alliance. All right, have a wonderful day.